which is, I think, an excellent way to kind of dig into our bonus round, which is we're kind of coming up closer to, we've got about 20 minutes together left. So I want to talk about the social emotional side of math and personal finance and financial education. So it is still kind of funny to people who knew me as a kid that I teach math, and I'm so passionate about math because I hated it as a child. I was very convinced that I was bad at it, period. Like in me, I was born bad at math. And it wasn't until I started going, becoming an educator and learning there were different ways to instruct math than that standard algorithm that I got, that math started making sense in my own head. And being able to do mental math was such a confidence builder for me. Finally, I'm 35 and I'm learning how to do mental math. It felt great. So I could connect to the kids when they, we've all heard them, no, I'm just bad at math. I hate math. I'm not good at math. I love the idea of flipping that script on its head and taking that real social emotional development aspect to it. All skills are skills that we can develop like a muscle, whether it's a math skill, whether it's a saving skill, or whether it's responsibility. We're not born, some of us have inclination or are inclined towards certain, skills. We know this, but no one is just inherently good or bad at things. You can develop these skills like a muscle, and that obviously the strategies you use will vary from person to person, but I just really see that as this big connection between social emotional learning and math. And then you add in the fact that just like our social emotional, skills, financial literacy is touching our life every day. All of our interactions, money is something most people deal with, like I said, every single day, multiple times a day. It's a part of our overall wellness. And I think that's something people are really starting to embrace in this post-pandemic world, is that financial wellness is a big factor of our overall wellness. And so I think all of these things really combine to make a very cool area of opportunity here. When we're looking at financial education and overlapping it with SEL and overlapping it with math, we are developing problem-solving mentalities in our kids, which is so important. I think a lot of us are seeing this learned helplessness sometimes in our students, especially post-COVID, coming back from really challenging situations. I know it's been pretty unprecedented as far as the challenges that teachers are facing with some of their students. And so recognizing that they can solve problems and they can develop this skill, and that will help them not only in math, right? But talk about word problems, but in all different areas of their academics as well, and their personal life. Decision-making strategies, again, that's very, similar to those problem solving, developing logic, which I just think is such an important concept for students to understand. I think that really goes along with the estimation station and having some faith in yourself as far as being able to mentally get in the ballpark for numbers and strategies, even as much as like, should my answer be more or should my answer be less? These are big considerations for kids as well, that has that logical side of it. Seeing themselves as capable, like I just said, is so important in math instruction. In all instruction, I recognize some kids have that same attitude about ELA, but I just see it so much in math, and it just breaks my heart. Even in adults, people say, oh, I'm so bad at math. And I say, no, you just never had a teacher that explained it to you in a way that made sense. And so that's just, I just would love to see that mentality change a little bit more for our students. And that growth mindset approach that we're all embracing, I think. The benchmarks that most strongly connect, I find, with the financial education are going to be that self-management and self-efficacy within the social emotional learning standards for Washington State. Oh, sorry about that. Again, these so important in both testing strategy and math strategy too. So I really do hope I'm making the overlap here clear. Resources for social emotional learning. You're going to find on that accordion, like I was talking about, I started talking about it too early. This is K2 activity books. These two in particular, the CEE Personal Finance Printables from the Council on Economic Education and the Money Monsters activity book from the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, they specifically have math-based pages. So I did choose to highlight those in here. These are, like I said, just printable activity books aimed for K2. This is a great way to sneak in financial literacy as a brain break. There's coloring, mazes, word searches, and again, those Money Monster books connect. And all of that can be found on our resources page. Other things we're going to talk about are classroom economy. So we have our FEP local expert on classroom economies in the audience, just so everybody knows, Mr. Tim Rhodes. And we're going to talk briefly about teaching personal finance through children's literature. Classroom economies, I am just going to briefly touch on here. Again, our fellow Tim Rhodes, who's here, is actually going to be presenting on his classroom economy system at the Council of Economic Education's educator conference later this year, which is very exciting. And I say that because there's so many different ways and approaches, right, to classroom economies. They can be massive and overwhelming if you let them get to be. And so it's such an amazing skill. It's such a great skill builder. It's such a great community builder. It's such a great math reinforcer. It's really awesome financial literacy practice, employment and income practice. So it's worth mentioning, but I could definitely literally give an entire presentation on this with him. And so if that's something you're interested in, could you please mention that in your evaluation forms? We know if that interest is out there and we can develop something that would meet that need. My main advice for this would be to start small and only begin what you can continue. You want it to be a consistent thing. And if you start too big and then and because we're so busy, it just kind of drops, you really lose a lot of the power in this learning opportunity. So keep your currency realistic as well. This is an error I made that I'd love to kind of make sure you guys have. I went up into like $100 and $500 bills, and there are contexts for that might work. But for my kids, they really lost the value of it when they had that much money. And so when we're auctioning things off, like they're going for tens, thousands of dollars, and it's like that, I kind of lost some of the learning opportunity there. So I'd love for you to learn from that. But be realistic about the right things too. I wanted it to be very perfect and it's just, it's the best that you're giving is more than a lot of these kids are getting, right? This personal finance is kind of like social emotional skills. We were all just kind of expected to absorb it from, around us. And we didn't in a lot of the cases, no fault of anyone, but it just didn't happen. And so we're explicitly practicing those skills. So we want it to be a realistic thing, but like at the same time, don't take it to the point where it becomes not fun and not a fun learning opportunity for the kids is what I would say. Swag your way to a classroom store. Please don't spend your own money on this. Ask for volunteers, ask for donations, financial institutions, different big brands or big corporations around your school who may donate to things. Even, community centers around. We used to get wonderful donations from a church next to us, whatever works for you or what's within your community. But please, $20 at the dollar spot once in a while makes sense. Once in a while. But please do not fund your own classroom store for these kids. It's just teachers that shouldn't be on you. And there are a lot of ways. We have swag. We'll send you swag, honestly. So just hit us up. And trademark everything. Just for honesty and because kids are kids and because you want to keep control of the system, make sure you have some way to mark your bills and whatever currency you end up using so that it's authentic. I used cardstock. That was only the colors that were available in the teacher classroom that these kids would have to go buy an entire pack, and it was going to be a lot to forge things. So just trademark. Again, just touching on some of the most basic stuff here. The easiest thing to do is just a flat income at a set interval. Don't differentiate amount of pay based on a job or anything. That's, the easiest place to start. You can work on attendance if you do want to make it specific. You can work with participation. Submitting work. I know Tim would recommend not the grade itself, but just the participation in the activity. You can match it with classroom jobs. Really, just I would recommend not getting on Teachers Pay Teachers and grabbing a what's like a fill in the blank classroom economy. I would advocate for including your students in the planning process and really making it work for you. But again, if that's something that you have interest in, please let us know.